Hello! In this video we're going to take a look at a few different topics in the Python programming language. We're going to look at decisions with if statements, comments, boolean expressions, and relational operators. Alright, so the main topic of this video is decisions. Often when we're writing a program, we want to execute different code depending on some condition, such as something the user inputted or something the user clicked on. If we're checking whether or not someone won a game that they're playing, we might have some win condition and we want to see if that's true or not. So the first thing we're going to look at is Boolean values. A Boolean value is something that's either true or false. So for example, in the Python shell, I can ask the Python interpreter, is 5 greater than 3? And it will tell me true. So this statement, 5 greater than 3, evaluates to true. And true is a boolean spelled like this, B-O-O-L-E-A-N, boolean value. Similarly, I could say is 5 less than 3, and this will say false from the Python shell. The operator between the two numbers 5 and 3 is called a relational operator. So you should know several of these from math class. What we already have seen is greater than here. 5 greater than 3, this is true. 5 less than 3, this is false. Another one, 5 less than or equal to 5. So we can't easily underline. So what we do is we type a less than sign and then an equals sign. So that's asking is 5 less than or equal to 5? And of course it is, so that's true. But if I type 5 less than or equal to 3, this will be false. Go ahead and make a guess what would make the most sense for greater than or equal to. Alright, so it looks like this. 5 greater than or equal to 3, that is true. 5 greater than or equal to 5, also true. 5 greater than or equal to 6, that is false, of course. We can also ask if two values are just not equal. So 5 not equal, it's the exclamation point here. So 5 not, that's what most programmers, when they see the exclamation point, they read that as not. So 5 not equal to 5, that is false because 5 is equal to 5. So if I said is 5 not equal to any other number, it will be true. And then the last important one is to check whether or not two numbers are equal. So we should already know from the video on variables that one equals sign means to assign a value. So for instance, I might have a value named variable, and I might assign it the value 10. So now when I ask what variable is, it tells me it's 10. So one equal sign is already used. So if I type like 5 equal 5, that's not going to work. It says it can't assign a value to 5 because 5 already has a value, right? So what we use to check whether or not two values are equal in a lot of programming languages is two equal signs like this. So 5 equals 5, or 5 equals 5. So this is, instead of one equal sign, which assigns, like up here, assigns the value over here to the variable over here, we use two equal signs, which compares, is the value over here equal to the value over here? So I could also use variables. So suppose I make one variable and I give it the value negative 13, and another variable and I give it the value 32. So I can ask, is A equal to B? Of course it's not, because negative 13 is not equal to 32. I can ask, is A not equal to B? Of course that is true since these values are not equal. I can ask, is A greater than B? And that's false. If we go back here, what A and B are, negative 13 is not greater than 32, and last I could ask is b less than, or is a less than b? And that's true because negative 13 is less than 32. So these are relational operators. They compare the values. They compare the values on either side. So what we saw greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, not equal to, and equals. Alright, so let's start looking at a program and how we might use these things. So this is great, but right now we don't have much use for this. Sure, we can check whether or not things are equal, but maybe we want to do more than that. So I'm going to go ahead and make a new Python script, and I'm going to give it a name. So this should be a pretty familiar procedure at this point. I'm going to call this one decisions.py. So remember, this can be any name you want. The important part is the .py at the end. Alright, so here's the goal of our program that I want to write. I want to ask the user to enter their age, and I want to print a response based on their age range. So if they are younger than 18, I want to say you are a child. If they are younger than 30, I want the program to tell them you are a young adult. If they're older than 20 but younger than 40, I want to tell them that they're an adult. If they're younger than 50 but older than 30, I want it to say that they're middle-aged. And if they're older than 50, I want it to say that they're elderly or a senior citizen. Alright, so let's get cracking at how we're going to do this. One small note that I want to introduce to you right now is the idea of comments. So very often programmers are going to put notes in their files that aren't commands for the computer to execute. They're just notes to themselves or to other programmers that might be reading their code. As your programs get more and more complicated, there might be sections of it that are pretty confusing to look at. So you can leave notes that remind you later on, if you're looking at it a few days later and don't remember what you did, or another programmer if you're working on a project with multiple people. So just little notes to explain what you did so that it's more clear what's going on in your code. And also, you might say who the author of a file is at the beginning, just like when you're writing a paper, you put your name at the top of it. So to put a comment in Python, you hit this might be the hashtag to you, but it's really a pound sign. So this indicates that everything after this pound sign here is a comment. So for me, on most keyboards, that's Shift 3 to type that symbol. And I'm going to put my name. I'm going to say author Mr. McNally up here. And I'll also put maybe a date. I'll just make up a date so that 2032, 12, 3, so December 3rd, 2032. That's just a made up date. But you might put today's date up here in some format, okay? So these are comments. Right now, if I run this program, nothing's going to happen because there's no code in here. These are just comments. When I run this program, these lines are completely ignored. So anything after the pound sign here is just completely ignored. I can also do a multi-line comment. So this isn't too important, but just in case you see other code, you might see this. So it looks like this. Okay, so sometimes maybe you want to put a whole paragraph of comments describing what your program does or what a function does, which we'll talk about later. So the way to do this, instead of having to put a pound sign on each line, maybe, if there were maybe 20 lines here, it might get a little annoying to have to put a pound sign on each line. So the way you do this, you start it off with 3 quotation marks. So you see there's 1, 2, 3 quotes at the beginning, and then wherever you want it to end, you put another 3. So these are the same thing, but usually you'll just use the pound sign if you want to comment that's just one line like this, or you'll use the triple quotes method if your comment is many lines like this, okay? So, for now, maybe I'll just put description. This program tells the user about their age. All right. So let's get to work on this. How do we ask the user for input? We use the input command. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a variable called user age, and I'm going to ask the user to input that. What is your age? Question mark, space, and then end quote. Now, do you remember from the previous video what kind of value we get back from the input command? Do we get a integer, a floating point number, a string, a boolean value? What do we get? So if you watched the last video, you'll know that we always get a string back from the input command. But in this case, we know that we're asking the user for an age, which should be a number. Okay, and age, and I'm going to say in years, so the user isn't confused. So this is maybe even better. Maybe I'll just ask them, how many years old are you? So there's no confusion, because I just want to know how many years old they are. I don't care if they're 13 years and 5 months. All I would care about is the 13 years old part, okay? So this is always going to give me back a string. Hopefully they enter a number. When the user runs the program, they enter a number, something like 25 or 32 or 12, okay? So remember that the input command though gives me back a string, but I want an integer. So remember how to do that from before. I'll take the user age variable and I'll turn it into an int like this, okay? So remember, I'm taking this variable and I'm assigning it the value on the right side. In this case, I'm converting the string user age to an int and then storing it back in the user age variable. So this is okay to do. It looks a little confusing at first because you kind of have the same thing on both sides of the equal signs, but you have to remember that the equal sign means assign. So it means assign the value on the right hand side to the variable on the left hand side. Alright, so far, if I run this program, all it's going to do, so we can go ahead and look, there's no harm in just playing around and looking. So all it's going to do right now, it'll ask how many years old are you? And they'll enter something like 42 maybe. And that's it, because right now all our program does is ask how old they are, and it converts the age they entered into an integer. But now we can do some stuff with that age, and we're going to look at how to do that. So, how do we make a decision in Python is the question, because we wanted to do something different depending on their age, right? So how we do this in most programming languages is with the if keyword. So we say if and then what the condition is. So for instance, if user age is less than 18 and then a colon and I hit enter and I'll say print you are a child. Okay? Now let's just run this program really quickly. I'll hit F5, save. How old are you? So I'm going to enter an age less than 13, or less than 18. I'll enter 13 for instance, and it prints out you are a child. And I'm going to run it one more time, and I'm going to enter an age greater than 18, like 25. Make a guess about what might happen when I press enter here and enter the age 25, which is greater than 18. Alright, so nothing happened. So let's look at what's going on here. So we've got user age, which is an int now, and it's some number that the user entered. So what's going on in this line here is what's called an if statement. This is how we do decisions in programming. So I say if, and then some boolean expression. So just like over here, what we were working with, these were all boolean expressions that use relational operators, just deciding the relationship between two values, okay? So, for instance, I've got user age, which has some number in it, and then I'm asking, is that less than 18? So this right here is a Boolean expression. This, what I have highlighted, just like we had over here, or down here, will always evaluate to true or false. So if this whole expression evaluates to true, then the code down here gets executed. If this evaluates to false, like it did when I entered 25, then whatever code's underneath this if statement doesn't get executed. Okay? But if I'm not indented anymore, I can print hello. This code is no longer part of this decision, of this if statement, since it's indented differently. So right here, there's 4 spaces. This is the standard in Python. You can actually put a tab here or 4 spaces. Most people use 4 spaces. So 4 spaces here. That means that this goes with this if statement. I could put multiple commands in here, so both of these could be under this if statement, and these will both only happen if this expression here is true. But as soon as I'm no longer in the if, I can have some other statement, and this will always get printed out because it's not part of this if block. This is called a block. Okay, so let's just run this one more time so you can see what's going on here. So how many years old are you? So I'm going to enter an age less than 18, like 12, and you see that you are a child, hello, and always printed out. All are printed to the Python shell. But if I run it again, and I enter an age greater than 18, such as 19, these 2 lines, you are a child and hello, do not get printed because those belong to this if block. And this condition, user age is less than 18, was false. So these lines do not get executed. Only this line gets executed because it's outside of the if block. Alright, so let's make our program a little bit more interesting. We said that we want to do different things for different age brackets. So, for instance, I've got the younger than 18 already taken care of here. I'm going to delete the hello line and just print out you're a child. But I also want to check else if. So in Python we use the keyword elif. This is short for else if. Okay, so just like in English we say if the user age is less than 18, do this. Else, if the user age is less than 30, okay, I'm going to print out you are a young adult. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and delete this line as well. Alright, and I'm going to go to another line, and I'm going to say else if. So this code will get executed if they're older than 18, but younger than 30. We'll execute this line. Then we go to the next line. If the user age is less than 40, print you are an adult. Okay, and I'm going to go one more line. And I'm going to print you are middle aged. And then I'm going to say else here, you are a senior. Okay? So, this last line is a little different. Else means every single thing above it wasn't true. So, let's go ahead and just take a look and see what happens when I run this. I'm going to run module. I'm going to enter an age, 35. So it prints out you are an adult because I'm older than 30, but less than 40. So this line gets printed. I can run it again. Go over here, press F5. How many years old are you? I could say 49. And it's going to say you are middle-aged. And then I can run one more time. I'll enter, say, 85. You are a senior. All right. So what's going on with this last statement here? Else, that means nothing above it was true. So this will, if no matter what, one of these will get printed. Either the user age is less than 18, it'll print out you're a child. The user age is less than 30, it'll print out you're a young adult. But the user age had to be greater than 18 to get here in the first place. Okay, so that's one thing that we maybe need to look at again. So as soon as any one of these conditions is met, then none of the other ones get executed. So if the user age is less than 18, it prints this out and ignores everything else in the same if block. Okay, but if I start it over, so perhaps I put if here instead of elif, this makes a new if block altogether. Okay, so now I could run this program. I'm going to hit F5. How many years old are you? I'm going to enter the number 15. Make a prediction about what's going to happen. So what's going on now? I have two if blocks. Here's if block number 1, and I can put a comment, if block 1, and then I can put another comment to show you if block 2 starts here, okay? So here's block 1, here's block 2. Before, this didn't get executed if this did, because this being met exited the whole if block. But now there's two different if blocks. So this can get executed and one of these can get executed because they're in different blocks. So over here I'm entering 15. Make a prediction about what's going to happen when I press enter based on this code. Which of these conditions will be met within each block? So go ahead and make a prediction. So it's printing out you are a child from this if block because the user age is less than 18. And it's also printing out you are a young adult because in the second if block, the user age, this first line, if user age is less than 30, is met. Normally, if these were in the same if blocks, if I had the elif back in here and run it again and enter 15, only this line gets printed, okay? And that's because now this is all one block again. There's not two different blocks. So as soon as one of these conditions is met, none of the subsequent ones can be met, okay? The else happens if none of the ones before it are true. And once you have an else, you cannot put another line. So I can't go down here and type elif user age is greater than 100, print won't work. Okay, if I try and do this, I'll get an error. This is highlighted in red. That's telling me this is a no-no. Since I already had an else, there's no way this could ever happen. Okay, because the else is going to get executed no matter what, and then I won't get to the rest of this block. Okay, so once you have an else, that's got to be the end of your if block. If you want to have else ifs or elifs, you put those before your else, your final condition or your final output that happens no matter what. All right, so this has been a simple program to look at decisions in Python. One last thing, we can store these values such as user age is less than 18, we could store that in a variable. So I'm just going to show you that real quickly, just so you don't get caught off by that in some future examples. So I could put, I could make a variable called is minor. Okay, so this is whether or not someone is a minor. And I could store in this user age is less than 18. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and print out is minor. Okay, just so we can look at it. What's going on here? This on the right side, remember, is just true or false, right? We have some value here, some value here, and this operator, the less than operator, compares the two values. So if the user enters 15, for example, this whole expression here that I've highlighted will be true, and then true will get stored in is minor. And that true is called a boolean value. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and run the module just so you can get a look at what this looks like. So if I enter 15, remember, think about which one of these is going to get executed for the age 15. It says you are a child, and it also prints out true, because is minor is now a variable that has a boolean value stored in it. It has the boolean value true in this case stored in it, because the person, this is a common naming, because the person is a minor, that's true. If they're not a minor, you would expect that to be false, right? So let's just run that again, and enter the age 45, 47, for instance. So it'll tell me I'm middle-aged because this command here gets executed. User age is less than 50. And down here, when we check is the user age less than 18, that gets stored in is minor. And when I print that value out, false. Okay? So, go ahead and, as always, play with some of this stuff yourself. If you have any other little programs that look like this that you can think of, just go wild and have some fun playing with this. I'll see you in the next video.